Greetings and welcome to the Saco City Council meeting for Monday, May 22nd, 2023. Call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Let the record reflect that all councilors are present, with the exception of Councilor Archer, who has an excused absence. I'd like to invite you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. Under general this evening, we have a long-time tradition for Saco, and so the City of Saco is pleased to announce that we've been designated as a Tree City USA city for the 13th year in a row by the Arbor Day Foundation. This recognition demonstrates the commitment that Saco Parks and Recreation Department has to ensure that Saco's urban landscape remains rich with a variety of tree species that are vibrant, healthy, and safe. Saco is celebrating Arbor Week this week, which is an excellent time to spotlight the work of our parks team and their dedication to keeping trees a vital part of Saco's community landscape. The Tree City USA program has been a greening up cities and towns across America since 1976. It is a nationwide movement that provides the framework necessary for communities to manage and expand their public trees. Saco joins a select number of cities and towns in the state of Maine that share this recognition. I'll now read the official Arbor Week proclamation. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas in 1978, the state of Maine first celebrated Arbor Week during the third full week of May. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, William Doyle, Mayor of Saco, do hereby proclaim May 22nd through May 26, 2023 as Saco's celebration of Arbor Week. In the City of Saco, I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Week and to support the efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this for future generations. Moving on to item 5 of the agenda, committee correspondence to council. Any committee correspondence this evening? Councilor Berman, then Councilor McPhail.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm reporting as the Saco Main Street liaison, letting council and the public know that their development committee has met for the first time. Their fundraising materials have been distributed to each councilor's desk. You can see they've set up a variety of tiers, both for events and for the overall program. Well, many of the highest tiers are already filled. There are many sponsorship opportunities remaining for all their events. This isn't only appropriate for council, but members of the public and businesses can donate too if they would like. You just have to reach out to the webpage to find the packet and contact someone from Saco Main Street. April was their largest corporate sponsorship fundraising month so far, with over $5,000 raised from corporate sponsorships. And they wanted me to report that they're working with Saco Parks and Rec on a $50,000 T-Mobile hometown grant. So they've heard council's advice loud and clear, having banner fundraising off to a great start, and are working on grant getting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McPhail.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to send a big heartfelt thanks to the Girl Scout Troop 97 for their donation of a seed exchange to the Saco Community Garden, which is located on King Street. The garden is a division of the Saco Park and Rec. The box is a result of the hard work by the Girl Scout Troop, and they've been raising money as part of their Take Action project. And it's a program dedicated to helping the community by addressing a need and finding sustainable solutions. The Seed Share program is a way for them to help the insecurities of food and is considered a sustainable source. It was an honor to meet the Troop 97, which is comprised of girls from 7th and 8th grade, and their leaders who are clearly instilling the values of community involvement and support to them. So I encourage anybody to stop by the community garden. There are some seeds in there now, so if you have some seeds to share or would like to take some, we've got little packages if you have extras, and it is there and open for everybody in the community.
Thank you. Councilor Gunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the Planning Board liaison, I want to report that based on some new information that was presented to the Planning Board and staff by the developers of the potential developers of Lincoln Street parcel, the public hearing for the preliminary subdivision approval has been reopened. It was reopened pro forma last meeting, though, with the intent to have a full meeting available for public input, which would be scheduled, I believe, on June 6th. So if you, any residents in Ward 5 or throughout the city that like to have some have their voices heard and have some input on the project, the public hearing is once again open for June 6th meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further committee correspondence? Moving on to item 6, and that is public comment. If there's any member of the public who would like to address the city council, please come forward and be heard. With nobody seeking recognition, moving on from public comment, item 7 is approval of the minutes for May 8th and May 15th of 2023. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Councilor McPhail, is there a second?
Second.
Councilor Hatch, any discussion on the minutes? No discussion, roll call vote. Councilor Purdy?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor McPhail?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. There's no consent agenda this evening. That brings us to item 9, action items. Up first is the second and final reading, budget amendment number 6 for opioid funds, originally signed to Councilor Archer. Is there a councilor willing to make the motion? Councilor McPhail, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City of Saco has received $18,570.83 in opioid settlement funds. We are recommending that the funds be used to purchase needed drug testing equipment for the department. Be it ordered that the City Council approves the second and final reading of Budget Amendment Number 6, fiscal year 2023. I move to approve the order.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor McPhail, second by Councilor Johnston. Any discussion? No. Councilor Purdy?
Just in the background, it says we recommend the funds be used to purchase needed drug testing equipment for the department. Just for clarification for anybody who is watching, which department?
So if you look on the action item A, Exhibit 1, there's different organizational numbers, and if you look at one of those, one is assigned to the police department for the purposes of drug safety equipment.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Roll call vote. Councilor Purdy?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor McPhail?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Brings us to item B, a first reading, Chapter 81, request to purchase city-owned property, Lincoln Road, tax map 101, lot 35, assigned to Councilor Purdy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On January 9th, 2023, council approved to advertise 24 Lincoln Road by sealed bid with a minimum bid of $4,400 for the purpose of land preservation and with deed restrictions to limit further development, followed by proceeds from the sale of 24 Lincoln Road will be designated by council at a later date. It was also stated that staff would choose a buyer and facilitate a closing. There were no bids received by the deadline date of February 17th, 2023. Director Desjardins contacted the original interested party, Mr. Harmon, and asked if he still had an interest in purchasing the property. and Mr. Harmon made an offer of $1,000 on March 13th, 2023. Another abutter, Ms. Williams, made an offer of $5,000 on April 6th. Section 81-2C of Saco City Code states that the council shall determine the method of sale if the council decides to offer any city-owned property for sale. Regardless of the method of sale, notice shall be sent to all abutters. Saco's assessor believes that the property was acquired by the city in the late 1970s or 1980s, early 1980s, because of a failure of the previous owners to pay property taxes. Section 81-2D of the Saco City Code states that proceeds from the sale of tax-acquired properties shall be applied to the balance of the unpaid taxes and any unpaid fees, interest, and lien fees for the property. Any additional funds received will be deposited into a dedicated special revenue fund entitled Proceeds from Sale of City Property to be expended for future development projects or as directed by the City Council. Because there are two bids for the same property submitted after the deadline date, Director Desjardins is seeking counsel to make the decision to award the bid. Be it ordered that the City Council approves Director Desjardins to facilitate and complete the sale of 24 Lincoln Road, tax map 101, lot 35 to Rebecca Williams.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Purdy, second by Councilor Johnston, to sell the city land at tax map 101, lot 35 to Rebecca Williams. Any discussion? Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. So back in January, I had made the amendment to require this to go to bid for the $4,400, which I believe, if I remember correctly, was the assessed value of the land. So I felt we had a fiduciary responsibility to ensure we got at least that. So given we have, this particular potential buyer that's offering the $5,000, I think it makes sense to move forward with that, even though she was not the original petitioner. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? Roll call vote. Councilor Purdy?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor McPhail?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Brings us to item C, an amendment to the Saco Downtown Facade Grant Program assigned to Councilor McPhail.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the new business added in the Camp Ellis area, the city was approached about programs available to assist these businesses. The city offers 3 programs: the Downtown Facade Grant, Small Business Grant Program, and a revolving loan program. In order to maximize these programs, the Economic Development Commission voted to approve an amendment on May 8, 2023, to include businesses located in the transit-oriented TIF district within the Camp Ellis zoning district as part of the Facade Grant Program. Be it ordered that the City Council grant to support the amendment of the Downtown Facade Grant Program to the Facade Grant Program, which includes the downtown and Camp Ellis. I move to approve the order.
Motion's been made by Councilor McPhail. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilor Berman. Any discussion? Councilor Berman, then Councilor Johnston.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was really happy to see this in the packet. I didn't know it was being worked on. I think it's great. I've long had a vision of Camp Ellis as a second economic center for our city, and I think this is really a step in the right direction. So I appreciate that and fully support it, and I'm really grateful. I do have a small comment. It looks like under grant application and deadline to submit a complete application to Jessa Berna, Economic Development Specialist, via email, jberna@sacomaine.org. I'm wondering if we should make an amendment to change that to Tracy Desjardins. Looks like the answer is yes, so consider that a motion for an amendment, please.
Councilor Berman's making an amendment here to remove, to strike through Jessa Berna and jberna@sacomaine.org under grant application and deadline, and include in there Tracy Desjardins and tdesjardins@sacomaine.org. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor McPhail. Any discussion on the amendment only? Amendment only, roll call vote, Councilor Purdy.
Yes.
Councilor Gunn.
Yes.
Councilor Berman.
Yes.
Councilor Hatch.
Yes.
Councilor McPhail.
Yes.
Councilor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Back to the main motion as amended. Councilor Berman, do you have anything you wanted to finish up? Councilor Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll just say that I'm certainly not opposed to a grant program down in Camp Ellis. I do question the process that we are using. For me, this is a tidbit personal, because this grant facade program is something that I directly worked with city staff at the time for the creation of these programs for the downtown. I don't think we've reached the levels of assistance that I'd like to see in the downtown at this point. For many years, the funding wasn't anywhere close to the levels it needs to be at. I think we're trending in that direction today. But again, I guess, this is a growing concern for me. I think you've heard me state this previously, that it seems as though the downtown TIF has become this catch-all for everything in the city, and that was not the intent when we created that development district. So again, I find myself questioning, is this another moment where we're talking out of both sides of our mouths again, where we talk about development of the downtown, yet you divert funds somewhere not in the downtown. So given that we have a transit-oriented TIF district that includes Camp Ellis, along with a large section of the Portland Road, I don't understand why we wouldn't just create a facade program for that TIF district. We're ultimately competing for dollars, and if we're now going to divert dollars down to Camp Ellis, those are funds that aren't going to businesses that may be looking for a facade improvement in the downtown. So I understand, there's a new business down there that's looking to take advantage of this, and like I said, I'm certainly not opposed to that. I just would prefer that we create a similar program in that TIF district. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Just for a historical perspective, remember that the council changed the TIF districts so that all of them would flow into each other and have some flow together and some fluidity. So, the downtown development TIF district is probably one of the largest, if not the largest. Remember that when all that money is coming in, it's going out per the budget of the Economic Development Department that this council approved when you approved the budget. All the items that were identified, excuse me, they were identified, and they were identified which budget they would come out of, and you all approved that. So remember that the downtown, or this facade grant, is for everybody, not just specifically for the downtown, but it's for everyone. So, Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. Respectfully, I disagree. When we created this fund, this grant program, it was specific to the downtown. That's why we're here amending it tonight. So again, I'm not opposed to a Camp Ellis TIF district fund for facades or business grants, but you're essentially stealing money out of the downtown development district, which is a large TIF development area. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I haven't seen a whole lot of development in it. So for me, as I said, you hear it all the time, it's about process. I like things that are clean, and I understand what we're doing. This seems like I said, it's a catch-all. It's not just this, it's many other things. We did a hoist for Camp Ellis a couple years ago. And yes, I was there, I was part of the budget. I was opposed to it. We've done a ramp down at Camp Ellis. What does that have to do with the downtown development district, where those tax revenues are supposed to be invested back into the downtown? That was the concept. I'm aware of this omnibus change that we made back in 18, 19, or what it was. And I had reservations about that then. But I approved that with the understanding that we were going to have millions of dollars start to accumulate in some of these TIF districts. And yeah, it made sense when you had a project such as a sidewalk out in the industrial park to divert some of those funds from the downtown to something like that. But this is specific to business development. So I don't understand why we don't just create one for Camp Ellis, keep them separate. I can tell you, I can assure you, there are downtown business owners that are looking at this going, well, where's the actual money as their taxes go up and are diverted into this fund? I hear it on the regular. Thank you.
And I would just point out, council, that remember, there are actual businesses downtown that have gone through the facade grant program and gotten money out of that program to enhance their facades. So the goal of the project is actually happening. So, any further discussion on the amendment to the Saco Downtown Facade Grant Program? Roll call vote. Councilor Purdy?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor McPhail?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Respectfully, Mr. Mayor, if you are going to lecture a counselor from the podium, I ask that you remove yourself next time. No.
Thank you, Councilor Johnston, but for a historical perspective, I was providing the councilors that are new, who don't have the historical knowledge that you do. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 10, new business, and first up, we have item A, is an efficiency main presentation. You can sit or stand, whichever is good for you.
I'm happy to stand. Would you like me to actually share the deck? Yes, okay.
Please.
We've got to go into here, because you've never done it before, so you've got to go into here. Then you got to go into, I think it's this one. That's not yours, right? Yeah, click share.
No, that is not.
You got to open this up. No, that's okay. Technology, you gotta love it.
Technology. Always takes a minute.
I know, but it's kind of would be nice, so we can kind of. Just needed to press the button. Okay, now you can do your thing.
Awesome.
Introduce yourself, okay.
Thank you very much. Great to meet you all. Thank you so much for having me. My name is James Neal. I'm here with Efficiency Maine and the Efficiency Maine Green Bank. Today I'm going to be talking about commercial property assessed clean energy, otherwise known as CPACE. Relatively quick agenda. There's a lot of slides. I'm going to breeze through most of them, and I'm happy to share the deck with you if you would like further information. We also have plenty of information at efficiencymaine.com/c-pace. As a brief overview, Efficiency Maine, independent quasi-state agency. We administer a lot of statewide energy efficiency and carbon saving programs. We're funded by electrical and natural gas rebates, as well as RGGI, the ISO-NE grid, federal grants, and other sources. In 2021, there was a legislation passed by the state, LD 370, which was a CPACE Act, and that gave Efficiency Maine the authority to create the CPACE program or offer CPACE programs throughout the state. CPACE, as an overview, is a relationship between municipalities, capital providers, and borrowers. A borrower, there's a unique financing mechanism that allows property owners to obtain a more attractive financial vehicle, typically involving lower interest rates and longer borrowing terms, thus stimulating more development. So the borrowed capital is actually securitized by property tax assessments with an associated lien on the subject property. That security provided by the lien results in a bunch of compelling financial features, and in turn, CPACE strengthens the business case for investment in longer payback and deeper building improvements beyond what typically is possible with traditional financing. This is just a slightly more intense graphic that explains some of the other factors going on. Efficiency Maine would likely be the PACE administrator, but I will get to the option for any particular municipality to administer their own program. But the benefits of CPACE financing include reducing upfront costs, promoter longer-term financing, enables transferability of repayment obligations to subsequent owners, and ultimately it strengthens the case for longer payback and deeper building retrofits. There are several CPACE programs nationally. Most have experienced extreme success with billions of dollars of investment. Most have been in energy efficiency. As a little historical fact, the CPACE programs did start off heavily financing solar, and that over time has switched to a more wide and broad set of energy efficiency with many mixed financing opportunities. And 14% of the investment of CPACE is in new construction. And there are several successful programs across the country and plenty of national resources if you would ever like to find out more about those programs. As I had mentioned, in 2021, the Maine legislature enacted LD 340, excuse my misspeak earlier, an act to allow for the establishment of commercial property assessed clean energy. We vetted several different program design options, reviewing national materials, as well as discussing with many stakeholders within the community. We eventually, in December 2022, published our notice of proposed rulemaking, seeking written comment, and eventually adopted our rule in January 2023. Municipalities are now able to participate in the live program and pass we have a version of a model ordinance in which you're able to adopt an ordinance and sign a municipality participation agreement with Efficiency Maine to participate in Efficiency Maine's program, or you're able to adopt an ordinance to participate in a program in which you would administer. This is just a background of some of our design research and also a little bit of an overview of our administrative objectives. I think it's very important when discussing with municipalities that our huge intent of our program was to keep a low administrative burden and make sure it was a very simple and easy process for municipalities to participate in. We've gone through tremendous lengths to try and make sure that not just the municipality adoption process was quite simple, but also to participate in the program was a low administrative burden for a municipality as possible. Some key requirements in the CPACE Act that we obviously pass through to our rule are that the property for CPACE, an eligible property for CPACE financing must be in a participating municipality. The mortgage holder of that property, any mortgage holder or financial lien or encumbrance, must provide consent to the CPACE financing. A project must involve an energy savings improvement, which is clearly defined in our program guidelines, and a project must have a savings to investment ratio of greater than 1. This is some of the underwriting standards. I think this is important to look at from a municipality perspective to understand that this is the responsibility of the capital providers when underwriting a project. However, these are requirements for any project to participate in CPACE. So obviously you see the SIR, or savings to investment ratio, but also the debt service coverage ratio, the loan to value ratio, and the CPACE assessment to value ratio are all important factors to consider when looking at the CPACE program and how it would affect the community. So CPACE assessment can only be up to 35% of the property value. This is a quick overview of all of the different stakeholders or the key participants to any singular project that might participate in CPACE. Obviously, there's Efficiency Maine, there's the property owner, There's the capital provider, the improvement contractor, and the local municipality. The capital provider, to participate in the CPACE program, must meet some of our minimum credential requirements, and they must submit a capital provider application in order to become registered to participate within the program. And the local municipality must adopt a CPACE ordinance, and if they wish to participate in the Efficiency Main program, they must execute a municipality CPACE participation agreement. This is just a quick sample chart to help you understand the flow of an individual project. An improvement contractor and a property owner will typically align on the intent to execute on an energy savings improvement, whether new construction or retrofit. They will approach a capital provider on our registration list. At that point, they'll develop the project enough to be able to apply for the main CPACE or Efficiency Main CPACE program. They will, once having approval, they will go and implement that particular project, and then they will be in the financing term. At the end of the financing term, the financing is complete. So that's just a quick snapshot of the life cycle of a CPACE project. I have already mentioned that capital providers must become registered. We maintain the sole discretion over the approval and withdrawal of the different capital providers that seek to register within the program. And we will maintain a list of the registered capital providers on our webpage. This is an area that I want to make sure is understood by any municipality that we educate on the program. A municipality that has adopted a CPACE ordinance may pursue one of two options. They may enter into a contract with the trust to serve as its program administrator, and that is the aforementioned municipality participation agreement, currently available on the CPACE webpage. They can also choose to administer their own program or serve as the program administrator yourselves. Some quick information around that is that you may, in the intent of administering your own program, be required to register your own capital providers, and that would obviously drastically increase the administrative burden. There are many national CPACE capital providers that would likely not want to participate in such a small program because they would have to review all of the program guidelines at the municipality level. So it's absolutely your option, but it has not been pursued yet by any of the municipalities. And on a national perspective, although it's great to have that option as a municipality, it's not very commonplace and typically makes for a slightly less successful program. I had mentioned our program guidelines available at efficiencymain.com/CPACE, where you'll be able to see any requirements of any of the participants, such as capital providers, municipalities, and mostly detailing the requirements and eligibility of any particular project or property. CPACE assessments and the recording of liens, without getting too much in the weeds here, a CPACE assessment takes priority over any of the other liens that are available except for real property taxes of the municipality and liens of municipal sewer, sanitary, and water districts. So the municipality would not be losing their first position. It would, however, slice in front of any other existing mortgages or encumbrances to the property. In the event that the property is foreclosed upon, the CPACE lien will survive. And then the CPACE assessment is not eliminated by foreclosure and is also not accelerated. So if there's a foreclosure on a property at a municipal level, there's no obligation for the municipality to make any payments towards CPACE financing while they are in ownership of the property. That's actually a new, I'll call it a change to the program, but it's something that we clarified in the program quite recently. And then once the property is sold, the only, the CPACE assessment will survive and pass to the next owner, who will be obligated to make CPACE assessment payments going forward. The part of the CPACE financing that may be in arrears would only be paid after the municipality has received their payment on any of the foreclosed or any of the municipal liens that are delinquent. The municipality must notify mortgage holders of delinquency or default on property taxes. However, in the program that we're administering, the CPA, or the municipality is not required to collect these CPACE payments. So even though when you distribute the assessments each year, you will pass through the assessment of the property, you will not actually collect the payments for CPACE. And CPACE, if just CPACE financing is delinquent, it would go through a foreclosure process similar to that of a mortgage and would not affect the municipality. Hopefully I'm making this succinct enough and easy enough to understand without getting too much in the weeds. CPACE financing is only for energy savings improvements that have a savings to investment ratio of greater than 1. I also want to stress the fact that it is commercial property assessed clean energy, so these must be commercial properties, so they cannot be condos, and they must be rental properties of greater than 5 units. We do require the savings to investment ratio, which theoretically would provide the property owner with savings on their investment. We do require that the savings to investment ratio be reviewed by a Maine state engineer, otherwise known as the technical reviewer to the project. The technical reviewer does not have to be independent to the project. Also, the technical reviewer does not have to be the initial performer of the calculations, but they do need to review the calculations to make sure that the project has a savings to investment ratio of greater than 1. With new construction, there was a push across capital providers and some developers to make sure that we were able to look at buildings at the building level rather than just the energy savings improvement level. CPACE financing is limited to the energy savings improvement. So typically you will be required to itemize the costs of the energy savings improvements, and those are the only eligible CPACE financing costs. However, in the instance that the project is for high efficiency heat pumps, in the instance of new construction, you can either take 14% of the building cost, or you can take the itemized cost of the heat pumps when considering CPACE. The reason is that CPACE financing is typically a great replacement for mezzanine capital or preferred investors in the instance of new development. I know I throw a lot at you, but I'm happy to go into depth in any of the weeds around the CPACE program. Ultimately, right now the program is open for adoption. There are several municipalities that are interested, and I am performing presentations similar to this one or meeting with the council in a smaller setting. But at this particular point, my role is to provide as much education around the program as possible, and ideally spearhead adoption by providing as much transparent understanding of the program and its values. And typically it will lead in national programs. We see it. It leads to a lot of additional development within communities at a commercial level within their downtowns and in a more affordable way, and providing more energy efficiency retrofits to the community.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Any questions from the council? Councilor Berman, then Councilor Hatch.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the presentation. Some of it went a little over my head, and so I want to just step back a little bit and make sure that I understand. So I understand that the municipality would have to authorize the use of this tool if we want it to occur in our community. I didn't fully understand the role of the municipality after that in the administration, in the collection of the taxes and distribution. I understand there were two options. We could go independently or work with Efficiency Maine, but I didn't really understand how either of those options would look from the municipal standpoint.
It's a great question. So if you were to adopt an ordinance, which we have a model ordinance on our webpage, as well as sign our municipality participation agreement, then that would be participating in Efficiency Maine's program. You could also adopt an ordinance, similar or not similar, as long as it adheres to the rule, to administer your own program. Both of those would be an instance of adopting a CPACE program, one obviously under our participation in administration, and one would be under yours. In the instance, if you were to administer your own program, you would be typically responsible Theoretically, you could design it however you would like, but you would be theoretically responsible for not just placing the assessment on the property in the instance of CPACE financing, but also the collection of that assessment and the remittance of that assessment to the capital provider. In our program, you are not responsible for collecting the assessment, so the capital provider will provide the municipality with the assessment for the year for only the CPACE financing, which you would then add into the assessment that goes out to those particular properties. You are not, however, required to collect that assessment. There is an agreement between the capital provider, the property owner, and the municipality during the project process in which you essentially assign the capital provider as the agent for the collection of the assessment for the CPACE financing. So they're essentially, aside from the lien being placed in the assessment, they're essentially a mortgage that cuts in front of all other mortgages, and it operates that way. So municipality's responsibility after adopting into the Efficiency Main program is simply to receive the remaining assessment for that year from the capital providers, to distribute that to with the assessment for those specific properties, to sign what is a CPACE assessment agreement for any project that is coming through the pipeline. And it doesn't adjust your foreclosure process. So that is the low burden for municipality participation that we try to achieve. So that is on a national view, that's about the bare minimum that you can put into place to have this financing mechanism available. Does that clear up the question a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. And the municipality is involved in that case because it provides some protection to the capital lenders because there is an additional assessment on the property that then cuts in front of other mortgages. That's the benefit of having the municipality involved at all?
Yes, and the assessment or the lien is associated to that particular property record, so it's visible for any other future encumbrances to the property, but allowing the assessment on that property is part of allowing the financing to cut in front of any existing mortgages.
Which is then what produces the better rates and terms. Okay,
Exactly.
got it. Yeah, thank
And
you.
the survivability and non-acceleration of it also allows it to, the financing limitation is that you can only go out to the useful life or the weighted average useful life of the energy savings improvement. But the fact that it has such a secure position and it's essentially only behind the municipality is what gives it such a secure position and thus the attractive rates and terms.
Councilor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor Doyle. So I had a similar concern, and I'm glad Mike asked the question, so I'm a little clearer there. So the assessment precedes the existing mortgagor's lien. So how successful has this program been to get mortgagors to actually agree to that?
Well, we just launched, so we're still looking to get our first municipality, but on a national perspective, there are times that it makes sense and there are times that it doesn't. The lending community did raise this via testimony, but one of the big emphases of our program is to try and get a lot of local lenders involved in the CPACE program. Where I think this program can make a lot of sense is in the new construction. I also think from a retrofit point of view, with rates being so high, local lenders aren't necessarily getting the property owners aren't necessarily looking to refinance their entire property just to be able to do a small solar project or a small heat pump project. So if you look at it from a retrofit point of view, an existing mortgage on the property could also be that CPACE financier or that registered capital provider, and thus allow them to cut in front of themselves, essentially. And that way, you don't have to refinance the very low rate you might have from a couple of years ago just to do a smaller project. There are plenty of other instances, and the national CPACE financiers have a, I would say, relatively strong track record of helping or of getting consent from the different mortgage providers or primary mortgages to be able to consent to them to put CPACE financing in. So I would say there's definitely times in which they don't provide consent, but there is a relatively successful track record.
So I can understand how it's sort of a case-by-case situation, and
Absolutely.
I can see where there may be some appeal to a lender. And then the only other thing I'm still fuzzy on is what is the downside financial risk to the municipality in a worst-case scenario? I understand our lien rights are preserved with priority, but what is the downside financial risk to a municipality?
Well, as of a couple weeks ago, if you were to foreclose on the property and retain ownership of that property, you would have been obligated to make the CPACE assessment payments. We have amended a part of one of our documents to essentially, the registered capital provider has essentially conceded that in what is the CPACE assessment agreement. So that's no longer true. So there isn't really, I mean, not that I'm assuming that there is some liability in some manner of speaking. I can't quite think off the top of my head what your financial obligations. Obviously, you'd be required to review the CPACE assessment agreement for each project that comes through. But I can't quite think of any particular financial liability that the municipality might incur from adopting the CPACE program.
That might have been the only one, and if it's been eliminated, then I guess that...
Yes,
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
of course.
Councilor McPhail?
Thank you. And again, I appreciate the presentation as well, but I'm going to go even one step. What is this actually doing? I completely lost from the very beginning. So is this a loan program that is going to be made, an additional type of loan program for commercial development to allow for energy efficiency that they might not get someplace else? But in order to qualify, the municipality that it's located has to be a participating partner.
Yes.
Is that basically the gist?
Absolutely, and if you think about it from a lending perspective,
Yep.
A lender will typically not finance a one-off energy efficiency project without having short terms and higher rates, because it would take second place to any mortgage, and thus the degree of risk is higher, and that makes the project no longer financially feasible. If you were going to look at financing a solar project, you might be saving $1,000 a month, but your payment, because it's such a short time frame, is $5,000 a month, so it's not as attractive. If you're able to have a longer term payment, it can become positive cash flow. And also that now longer term payment is also transferable to future property owners, so you don't have to deal with that if you were going to ever sell your property. So it's the financing mechanism does resolve a relatively significant market gap for mid-size and large-size commercial projects obtaining energy efficiency projects. There's also a market gap in the new construction space. If you ever look at the capital stack for a new construction project, typically the developers of the property or the owners of the property have to put in about 15% of the project in cash, and then another 65% is financed through the primary mortgage. That remaining slice is typically going to go to preferred investors that take much higher percentage or mezzanine debt. So this is a slightly more attractive vehicle in that capital stack. Yes, it does slice in front of the mortgage. The mortgage is still okay with it because it doesn't push them above the 85% threshold, and that project ends up happening, in which they're going to get the mortgage on. So it has its appeal both in new construction and in retrofits. And the win for the community is that it's more likely to spur development, and it's more likely to spur energy efficiency projects, because you cannot finance new construction unless there's energy savings improvements involved.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay. Tracy, do you want to come up and say something? I'm sorry, Director Desjardins.
You can call me Tracy. I'm Tracy Desjardins, Director of Economic Development. I invited James is because I was approached by a developer for this program, and I felt it was important for council and even myself to understand, because this is a newly program. So that's why I asked James here. I wanted to get your thoughts on it and to see if this was something that the council did want to entertain before I brought back basically the ordinance before council. So.
Any questions for Director Tishardens? Councilor Gunn?
Thank you. I was just curious, being about a community of about just under 21,000 people, has any community of our relative size adapted this program within the last year or so? And is there any sort of just raw sort of initial results? I mean, considering obviously, you know, the market that we're in and what you're trying to do in terms of encourage both responsible growth and environmentally safe growth. Is there any sort of recent evidence to see what has been the effect in a town of our size?
Yes, not in Maine, as we just recently adopted we just recently had our rule go into effect. But on a national perspective, there is a municipality size that is actually a little bit, I don't want to say too large for CPACE, you know, like a New York City where property values are so high and projects have such a tremendous scale and the you know, elongated development process. And then there is a community size that might be a little bit too small where the basic project doesn't meet that minimum size. This type of community, I think, would fall in the range where CPACE financing mechanism would be an attractive tool in the tool belt of the community to spur development in the areas you would like, and perhaps have to utilize less of other tools that the municipality might have, such as TIFs or something of that nature. If we are successful in our tremendous efforts going forward to stimulate the participation of the local lending community, then a lot more retrofits would take place, and it would be a smaller project size burden. And in those cases, from a national perspective, programs have been very successful for this type of community, spurred energy efficiency projects and new development in a very positive and successful way. There is a lot of cases from the CPACE Alliance and PACE Nation are great resources to explore. If you remind me, I will circulate the deck so that you can view it. And on our resources tab, there's a number of Department of Energy resources and other great citations in which you can look at how the CPACE program has affected the national communities in which participate.
Excellent, thank you.
Of course.
Councilor Berman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Desjardins, I'd be interested in seeing a draft bill or draft ordinance come before council. I would have a couple of things. I think it'd be useful to find out from city staff about the administrative burden this might place on them. I'd also be curious to hear from city staff about answering Councilor Hatch's question about whether we perceive any downside financial risk of participating in the program. I think those would be two important things to answer. But in general, I think this is really in line with our declaration of climate emergency. I think it's in line with our efforts to reduce greenhouse gas and combat the effects of climate change. And I think it's a chance for Saco to take some real leadership on this at the state level. I also think that partnering with Efficiency Maine may be a desirable way to go as we learn how this works and probably don't have the wherewithal to manage this program ourselves.
Councilor Johnston, then Councilor Hatch. Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. I believe we have an ordinance like this, maybe the same for homeowners in Saco presently. So I don't know the data on that.
Yes, there is a residential PACE program involved, and that is also administered by Efficiency Maine. That particular program is for residential loans, and those loans are funded directly by Efficiency Maine. The difference in this particular program from that particular program is that we are using third-party capital funds. But aside from that, there's similar concepts between the two programs. So yes, and I'm pretty certain that you are a participant in the residential PACE program and have passed such an ordinance.
Yeah, so I would just inquire about the success that we've had in Saco to date. I think it went into effect 2010 or 2011.
Councilor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor Doyle. I would echo Councilor Berman's sentiments. I think it would be something that we should take a close look at, and if we can have those issues resolved, and if we've got a model already in our ordinance that we can draw from, and we've had some success with that, I think it would be something worth considering.
Any further questions? Discussion? It looks like there's some consensus to move this forward. You may not see it at the next meeting, but as staff prepares documents and so forth, you'll be seeing it in the future. Thank you very much, Mr. Neal.
Thank you very much, and happy to be a continued resource for any additional questions going forward if anyone would like.
Thank you very much. Up next is item B under new business, and it's the Camp Ellis Fire Station. We're going to hear from City Administrator Canrath. And Harbor Master Chadbourne.
So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As most of you know, the city has this is the old Camp Ellis Fire Station on North Ave or Eastern? Is it on Eastern or North? Where's the building? North Ave? Oh, North. North Ave, in Camp Ellis. So we had a long-term tenant in there, as you may know, who we have no longer have a relationship with due to some back payment issues and some other things. So we have the building back. It's been vacant for at least a year now again. It's in somewhat rough shape. Don Roth from Facilities has taken a look at the building and given us some initial ideas of what it would take to rehab it. It's not in great shape, but it is able to be rehabbed. It's not a total loss. So as we've talked about, there are a number of ideas to really drive economic development and neighborhood development and to build more of a sense of community in Camp Ellis that many in the neighborhood have talked about. And so the city has an opportunity, having this building right down there in the middle of this, I think to create some sort of anchor or some sort of driver down in the community that we could then use to further the renaissance, we'll call it, of Camp Ellis. So one idea that the harbor master, I'll let him speak for himself, when we talked about this, the town of Wells has a really great facility down by their public pier that they've really turned into more of sort of like a mini marine science center. They're doing some clam research there. They also showcase some local artwork up on the walls. It's really kind of a community center and sort of a little marine science center. They've had great attendance down there. The harbor master in Wells hosted us one day. We both took a look at the facility, talked to Mike down there, Mike York, quite a bit. So this is an idea. It's an example. We have up on the screen, we're going to have some pictures of the Wells facility. So this is what they've done down there. That's the exterior, but if you, Alex, if you advance it, a couple more slides, there's some interior shots of some of the tanks and things that they have set out for the public to come and view some marine life and some critters in. So this is just an example of some of the things we could do with that building there. Now, we've set aside, they're in the budget, there are TIF funds to support rehabbing this building. But we wanted to just begin the conversation here with the council of some ideas that are percolating of what we could do with this building, how we could drive things down in Camp Ellis, and what's really going to be a benefit for the community that the city can really take a part in. So, Dan, you've talked with Mike York a lot on this concept. You have some your own ideas and also some neighborhood feedback. I know there's a lot of people raring to go to do something with that building down there. So, do you have anything else to add?
So it's pretty involved at this point. I don't even know where to start, but I'll start with that picture right there. This is where they grow their clams for Wells Harbor. They grow 500,000 clams in that one tank, and they distribute them so that the residents, and it's just residents that get to go pick these clams. The residents, the pictures on the wall, those were all taken by residents. They're donated to this. Is there any way to go back on the, okay, so that's the same tank right there. You can see tanks on each side. Those, one of them, they have a permit to raise lobsters in. When I was in there, this is the second time I went down, and they've done even more. They've even more. This started out as a clam shack that literally looked like an outhouse, you know, right beside the pier down there. And this is all community. This is all volunteer work. A lot of it's volunteer money. I don't know if in the last slide you could see a glass roof on this building. That's Velex. They're a company in Wells. They donated that, and they also donated some money. There you go. That dome right there. So the whole community's involved in this. And I had another video of when I was in there in the summer, and there was a family in there, and the kids, you know, 3 or 4 kids. There's a touch tank. There's, you know, some other stuff in there. And this is part of the idea for the fire barn. Now, over the course of my lifetime, the fire barn was Halloween parties, Christmas parties, just events. I know several people that got married in there, and it was still a fire barn. You know, there were fire trucks in there. There were dances there, variety shows. I know this is all, you know, years ago, but there's still some of this can happen down there. I see, you know, the rec center, the kids going to Fairfield School. There's a destination in the summertime that they can come down and, you know, touch a starfish or, you know, this sort of thing. Plus, it lends for the history of Camp Ellis. It's a good place. There's just so many people uptown that never go. The Atlantic Ocean's 7 miles that way, you know, and so many, yeah, not even, and so many people just never go. So it's another attraction. I have 3 projects going on down there. That's one of the 3 projects. So a little bit here, a little bit there. And whatever we can do, you know, this is I've been listening tonight. And, you know, Camp Ellis is part of Saco. We're all in the same group here. I actually think Biddeford and Saco are like the same town because this is where I grew up, you know. So, I don't know. This is kind of, it's up to you guys. There's a lot of opportunity there.
You want to talk about some of the local community schools down there? I know you have a whole list of volunteers.
Yeah, we had, the rehab of the building is going to be done by volunteers. A lot of the Masons Lodges, there's 4 Masons Lodges local. We're all blue-collar guys. We can all, you know, lug roofing and this sort of thing. So the thing, and I'm a pretty frugal guy. So it'll, you know, short amount of money. We have a usable building, a safe, usable building. You know, the electrician's been in there. There actually may be a kitchen sitting in there right now that nobody's supposed to know about, so don't tell anybody. So this is kind of, you know.
Is there a
this is-
dishwasher in there? Because
No,
I know
no.
there's an issue up at Parks and Rec with a dishwasher.
Okay.
Joking,
Yeah, so this is
joking.
kind of, you know, and yeah. I mean, it's not just the Camp Ellis community, it's the whole community. You know, I hope to bring more people to the ocean. Go ahead.
Councilor Berman, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited about this opportunity. And I can envision maybe getting some of the University of New England involved, right? And their Marines, I mean, this is outside my area. I'm not making any promises on their behalf.
Yep.
But getting the Marine Science Center involved and some of their students coming to help with education and build out. I can imagine some of their education students wanting to participate also in doing community outreach and teaching. I can imagine getting the Saco schools involved for field trips and seeing some of the current working waterfront and some of its history. I can imagine engaging the Biddeford Center of Technology and having some of their students come and help do some of the work, electricity and plumbing, and making it an education, you know, for them also. I can imagine maybe at this year's Harbor Fest starting to pass the hat to raise money for some materials and making it a real community, you know, engagement and fundraising. And then, as you pointed out, you know, a center for education about the Atlantic Ocean, about the community around us, about how it's changed over time, about its, past, present, and future in a way that brings some of our kids back in touch with what Coastal Saco has been about. And so I think if we can achieve that goal, I think that would be really worthy and become almost a centerpiece, not just for Camp Ellis, but also, as you pointed out, for our one community. So I hope we can engage in some of those things, and I appreciate getting the Masons involved and seeing how the community can come together, kind of a figurative or maybe literal barn raising. So I'm all for it. I think we're on the right track, and I'm excited.
I
Thank you.
couldn't, sorry, will you say it? Oh, I couldn't have said it better. Actually, this facility has an intern from UNE. They're working with the clams. And the other interesting thing is I've been working with the clamshell, with the Clam Commission in Biddeford. They have 10 commercial diggers. They have 130 non-commercial diggers at Biddeford Pool. And so we actually have clam flats up in our river, on the Saco side of the river. We can't take the clams because we're lumped into a category by the DMR because we have 5 treatment plants in a small area. So they don't even come down and test the water. Working with them, and I actually have the clam book, the main clam book is what it's called, and I've been going to their meetings. We're talking about getting some testing done because there's clams on both sides of the river. So if we do this testing together, we can potentially open the river for recreational clamming. I don't see enough clams for commercial people, but hey, if you can go down and get a peck of clams and bring it home to your family, that's, take your kids down and do something like that. There's a lot of potential here.
Councilor Johnston, then Councilor McPhail.
Thank you. So if I understand this correct, this is like a welcoming activity educational center that you commonly find in many municipalities I've been to. I mean, if we keep the costs down, I definitely can be supportive of it. I think it makes sense there. But again, we've got to keep the costs down because we do have a Bayview fire station that sits unoccupied that I'm often reminded of. So I would suspect that this won't end up like that.
That's actually not a fire station anymore. It's just an empty building. It was a fire station when I was a kid.
Yeah, I'm aware of the history of it. I'm just saying that. I'm often reminded by residents down there that the fire station sits empty. And, we could probably better utilize that too. But I can be supportive of this. Thank you.
Yeah, just operationally, I mean, as far as, it's something that you feel you could absorb as far as, summer, opening the place in the morning, kind of tending to things.
Yeah, that's what.
So just as far as operational costs, we're not looking at much. Right?
No. One of the videos I have of the summertime in this particular building, they have a donations box. And Mike York tells me he cleans it out about every 2 weeks, and there's $500 to $700 in there. And just people dropping in, $5, $10 to go take their kids in there. It's cheap entertainment. So this is, I think my goal with this whole thing is we have a facilities manager, Donnie Roth, who I've known my whole life since Little League. And I want him to just go in this building, look around, everything's hunky-dory. He's out doing the next building because he's got enough stuff to do now. So that's the ultimate goal here is, and worst case scenario, everything fails, the building's worth more than it was. Do whatever you got to do,
Councilor McPhail.
Thank you. No, I agree. I mean, I think it's a perfect spot to do something like that. I think it helps to bring the community back in that area. Helps to give some vision to tourists that might come and some history. But along the line of doing the touch tank and the clamming, like you had said, bringing in UNE. So in the beginning, the volunteers, maybe down the road, that's a type of thing where a board could be commissioned. Either whether it's a part of the city or an individual, because that would be my concern is who's going to maintain it and keep everything going. I mean, if we have a touch tank and live species in there, I'd want to make sure that it was constantly being monitored or occupied by somebody and setting the hours, that type of stuff, and the donations. So again, going down the road, it could be something where a board could be created and on a volunteer basis.
I think City Administrator Kainrath might have already kind of summed that up, and operations will be up to the harbor master, and setting up those connections with all those different interested parties. But it also could be something that the Saco Shoreline Commission, which the harbor master sometimes attends, or the coastal waters, which the harbor master is on, that might be a participant to helping with direction. Councilor Berman.
Yeah, and over time, if it grows and donations come in, then that board or group could start talking about whether staff need to be hired or part-time staff need to be hired and whether it can become a self-funding operation. But I think in the initial build-out, right, I think the harbor master is offering to absorb it into some of his workload and get that done.
Councilor
The other
Gunn.
thing is, oh, sorry, I don't want to spend any Saco money. I want to spend state and federal money. So if you guys decide to do this, that's where the hunt starts, is I start looking for money from the state and the feds. So same thing with the other projects I got going down there. I mean, it's still our money. We paid it in, but we might as well get it back, you know?
Councilor Gunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, great idea. This is like one of those outside-the-box ideas that, as a counselor, I loved being presented to us, though, because this is something that, like you said, can be part of the community, can really not only help the neighborhood, though, but be that one spot that kids maybe look forward to going towards during the summertime. But that leads into my question. You have to forgive me, I don't know the particulars of the building. Do you envision this being possibly an all-season type thing? Because we all know, obviously, you know, during the winter, everything seems to shut down, and very limited opportunities for the kids to get out there and do things during the wintertime. But obviously, the ocean doesn't go away during the wintertime, and there's certainly education to be had there. Is that something, or is that, do we want to start more of a summer thing, or do you see it initially jumping in that it could be something that's all season?
Well, I'm kind of a pusher, so we'll see how it goes. The summertime is, 6 months out of the year, the good months. It's kind of what we're shooting for right off the bat, but there's other things that can happen in the wintertime in there. I don't see, it's a space, there'll be a kitchen in there. I see this can be a meeting space for groups or, whatever else is gonna happen. If the to your point, if the touch tanks, if we're not getting enough people in, I'm just gonna pack everything out and take it back where it came from. I'll just catch it again next year and, with some different individuals. And, this is my life, 50 years of catching stuff, so that's kind of pretty simple,
Any further discussion? Any objections? Okay.
I'd just like to say I'm really glad there's been a positive reaction here. I think this is going to be a tremendous asset for the community down there. I think you have no one more passionate about projects like this than this guy sitting next to me here, who will take this and run with it, and it will be his baby, I think, for as long as he wants to be involved down there, which is probably the rest of his life, but we'll see. So this is, I think, again, this is an incredible opportunity for us and to really show the city is investing in the Camp Ellis community and goes in nicely with, the boat ramp, the ACOE project, this that we're doing, the other projects we have slated down there, the Camp Ellis Festival coming online. We are making a concerted effort to do something down at Camp Ellis. So this is great, and I'd just like to thank again Dan for his passion on this project.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next is item 12, council discussion and comment. Any council discussion, I jumped right over number 11, and that is the administrative update. City Administrator Kainrath.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, as I just mentioned, Army Corps of Engineers, we had a very good and productive visit on the 15th with Jen Thauhauser from ACOE. This was the first on-the-ground visit we've had from them in a while. So we had a very good, I think, productive 2-hour meeting with her. There were a lot of questions from staff, residents, representatives from SOS Saco Bay were present. So I think we had some good dialogue. I think we have recognized that we have a pretty solid partner to work with at the Army Corps. I think we're all pleased with the meeting. She did lay out some timeline. This is always, I think, approximate, obviously. But apparently the PPA is going to be on our doorstep at any time. And that does seem to be imminent. I know we've heard this before, but they seem pretty serious about it. So once we have the PPA, it's going to take a few months to get that fully executed with the Army Corps. There's obviously quite a bit of process they have to do. But I think the numbers really everyone is looking at is, as far as getting the thing out to bid and in the construction phase of the project, we're still a couple of years away from that. And obviously there's permitting, there was real estate work, there was engineering, there's a lot that goes into a project like this. So I think the good news is it appears to be on track. I think we have a very good partner in Jen as the project manager to work with here, and it is in the works. I think the timeline is going to be the timeline, but I think we should all recognize also this is further along in the process than we've ever gotten before in a lot of years. So I think some good news there overall. Some updates on the beach. The beach mats are now in place. Bathrooms will be open by this coming weekend. Also happy to report, after some initial struggles with recruiting, we have a full contingent of lifeguards for the summer season. They will begin their duties on June 17th. Another note, our beach wheelchair is available for public use. New signs have been placed. I included that in the report here. You can see the signs about its availability. And anyone interested should contact Parks and Rec for more information, or one of the lifeguards when you're down there. Update piping plovers. We have 2 new piping plover nests at Kinney Shores. Just thank you to all those involved in the monitoring program. Keep your dogs on leashes. Piping plovers are nesting. Next, City Administrator's open office hours will be May 30th, 3:30 to 5 here on the 2nd floor of City Hall. And last, upcoming agenda for June 5th, we'll have our presentation from the auditors. From Finance, we'll have a compliance review for support entities discussion, as well as the April financials, and we'll also possibly be having our joint meeting with the school board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for City Administrator Canarath? Moving on to item 12, council discussion and comment. Any council discussion and comment this evening? Councilor Berman?
Just a friendly note that the Saco Bay Gardening Club is having their annual plant sale on June 3rd from 9 a.m. to noon at the Dyer Library parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further council discussion and comment? Moving on, item 13, executive session. Is there a motion? Council McPhail?
Thank you. Be it ordered that the City Council enter into executive session pursuant to MRSA Title I, Chapter 13, Subchapter 1, Subsection 4056. A, personnel matters, and C, sale of property.
Motion's been made by Council McPhail. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Hatch. Any discussion? Roll call to enter executive session. Councilor Purdy?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor McPhail?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 to enter executive session at 7:48. It'll be upstairs in the City Administrator's Conference Room right now. Greetings and welcome back from executive session. Is there a motion to exit executive session?
So moved.
Counselor Berman, is there a second?
Second?
Counselor Hatch, any discussion? Roll call to exit executive session. Counselor Purdy?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor McPhail?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Item 14, is there a report from executive session? Counselor Berman?
And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. I move the council authorize the mayor to engage in the services of and sign a contract with Betsy Olson of HR Maine Consulting for the purposes of engaging in our permanent city administrator search.
Second.
Motion's been made by Counselor Berman, second by Counselor Johnston, authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for a city administrator search. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Counselor Purdy?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor McPhail?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. That concludes the report from executive session. Moving on to item 15, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Counselor Hatch, is there a second?
Second.
Counselor McPhail, any discussion? Roll call to adjourn. Counselor Purdy?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman? Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor McPhail?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 at 9:54 p.m. Have a great evening.